Welcome to the Simply Financial Podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Calandra, and I want to increase your financial IQ with today's episode. The last two episodes that we published out to you were mid-year economic updates that the team and I prepared here at Osaic Wealth Management. So that was Season 8, Episode 28 and Episode 29. Note that episode 29, I had Brett DePasquale from the team here at Osaic Wealth Management join me. These episodes, if you haven't listened to them, I would suggest you go back and listen to them. I've gotten great feedback on them. I'm really proud of the content. And it gives you a good summary of my thoughts on where we are economically. Reasons to be optimistic as well as reasons to be worried. Again, good content, gotten great feedback on it. So today is sort of an update because there's some new information that's come out that I wanted to share with you. During both economic update presentations, we talked a little bit about unemployment. And what we've had coming out of the pandemic was very strong job market with low unemployment numbers. So in May of 2023, the unemployment rate was at 3.7%. I pointed out in the presentation, the economic update, that had risen slightly to 4% in May 2024. So it was trending in the wrong direction, but 4% still is a very healthy job market. And that is one of the reasons why the economy has been able to avoid a recession, even though we've had inflation and a rising interest rate environment over the last stretch. So here's the update. The June unemployment numbers came out, and the unemployment number crept up to 4.1%. So the economy did create jobs, created over 200,000 jobs, which generally is a pretty good number. I'm going to get to what actually led to the increase in unemployment in a moment. But the unemployment rate's now at 4.1%. So I already said in May of last year was 3.7%. But if we go back over the last 12 months, the unemployment rate has gone up from 3.4%, an amazing number, to a 4.1% number, which is still strong, but you can tell it's trending towards weakening, and it's evidence that the economy might be slowing. As I mentioned a moment ago, we've avoided a recession so far, but if unemployment continues to go up, the economy might be slowing down and we might be making our way to a recession. Now, that's very premature. It's very premature. I'm not alarmed. This is not a positive, but it's not a huge deal either. Some more perspective. It's a troubling job market in the sense that we're creating more part-time jobs than full-time jobs. Now, that's not ideal. So in the month of June of 2024, we created 50,000 net new part-time jobs, and full-time jobs were net down 28,000. That's not so great. 74% of the jobs added last month were in government and healthcare. I don't know about you that is listening. When I see so many government jobs being added, that to me is not a sign of economic vibrancy. My base opinion is that the government is generally too big and too vast and tries to do too much and has too much money at their disposal. But I digress. 74% of the jobs added were in the government and healthcare. The last point I'll make before I get to the annoying part of these job numbers was that the unemployment rate going over 4%, that was the first time that's happened since November of 2021. So it is more evidence that I wanted to provide you to paint the picture that unemployment is still very strong, but the trend is weakening, and that's something that could be worrisome if it continues. So let's talk about the annoying part. So if you picture how this works is the government makes an announcement like they did in June, and they say we created a little over 200,000 jobs. And then the next month, after the announcement, they will revise the number because they're going to get more data in. They'll crunch the numbers some more and they'll revise the number. And then they'll do it 3 months out. They'll make another revision, the second revision or the third announcement on what the numbers were. So if you're following me on this, the May jobs numbers, the first revision for May, revised the numbers downward from 272,000 that was originally reported all the way down to 218,000. That's a 20% downward revision. And they did the last revision for the April numbers. The original April job growth was 165,000. That's what was reported for April originally. Now that they've revised it twice, the final revision, it was revised down from 165,000 all the way down to 108,000. That's a huge miss. That's a huge miss. That is a 35% delta. They're off 35% on their numbers. Now, if you're conspiratorial, which many of my listeners are, and I have a conspiratorial bent too, you might think that the government is manipulating the numbers, trying to create positivity, maybe for political reasons to support the Biden administration, maybe to prop up people's attitude and perceptions of the economy, wanting to encourage people to think positively about the market and maybe sprucing up the numbers. So the government might be manipulating it, or at the very least, they are struggling to get good numbers because maybe they're inept. I definitely have the government is inept bent in my thinking, or things have changed out of COVID and they're just generally having trouble getting good numbers, which means maybe they aren't inept. Maybe it's just more difficult than it was in the past. So let me explain to you. I already talked about the May jobs, the first revision, they were off by 20%. If history's a guide, recent history, when they do the second revision next month, they'll revise it downward even further. April down 35% with the final revision. So that's 20% for May, first revision, 35% in May, April, second revision, final revision. But when we look back in 2022, I want to give you this perspective. When we look back in 2022, the average revision for the last revision was 6,000 jobs. So they were much more accurate with the original number and then the revisions than they are now. In 2023, the average revision was 30,000 jobs off. That's a big number. That's a big percentage. And when you get to 2024 so far, it's at 49,000 plus jobs, the revision, and they're constantly revising the numbers downward. They almost never report a number and say later, well, actually, we created more jobs. It is reliably a downward revision. And 6,000, you would say, oh, that makes sense. The government's doing a good job. They're reporting a number. They're crunching the numbers over the next couple of months to make the revisions, the ultimate number, as good as it could be. 6,000 is an indication that they were pretty close to the target. When you're 49,000 jobs off, that is percentages, which means that we are not getting good numbers. These numbers are very important to the economy, to market watchers, to investors, to bankers, business owners. These are very important numbers. They're not to be taken lightly. They carry a lot of weight in the marketplace across a wide spectrum of areas. So the key takeaway for you as I begin to wrap up is the government numbers that we're getting for unemployment, you should view skeptically. If you're conspiratorial, you could assign it to that. Or if you think maybe the government is just inept, you could assign it to that. Or maybe it's just that it's harder than it had been in the past to get good numbers. Might be a combination of the three. I don't know. But the key takeaway is the trend of higher unemployment, a weakening job market, shows economic weakness that needs to be watched. It's something that we're going to keep an eye on as we normally do. We'll talk about it more in the podcast, I imagine, over the next couple of months and looking ahead to the January 2025. Can't believe I'm saying that. Looking forward to the January 2025 economic update that we'll put out. I imagine unemployment will be part of that conversation. But thank you for listening today. I appreciate you taking some time to listen in. I hope you found the information to be valuable. If so, check out our website, elliottwealth.com, and also subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done so already. Again, thank you for listening. I'll be back with you on the next episode of the Simply Financial Podcast very soon.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of Osaic Wealth, Inc., and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. No strategy can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Please note, the information being provided is strictly as a courtesy. When you link to any of the websites provided here, you are leaving this website. We make no representation as to the completeness or accuracy of information provided at these websites. Nor is the company liable for any direct or indirect technical or system issues or any consequences arising out of your access to or your use of third-party technologies, websites, information, and programs made available through this website. When you access one of these websites, you are leaving our website and assume total responsibility and risk for your use of the websites you are linking to. Securities and advisory services are offered through Osaic Wealth, Inc., member FINRA, SIPC. Insurance services offered through Elliott Wealth Management Services, LLC, not affiliated with Osaic Wealth, Inc.